Yeah, so I guess like let's talk generally. Like, what are some things organizations and teams can do to widen the gate and improve representation on their teams at their companies?
I think I'm going to talk about this in a kind of broader sense first. And just when having done a lot of hiring, interviewing, recruiting, and resume reading in my career, there's a couple of things that I've noticed. One of those things is that the overall importance of wanting to close a representation gap has to start at the top of any organization, right? And then number two, I think, and this is inherently for everybody, there has to be an awareness of all of ours, our unconscious bias, right? We all have it, whether we want to admit it or not. And so I think everybody having awareness of that is going to be hugely critical. So what do I mean by these? I think when you think about an organization, I think again, any kind of significant changes that are going to happen, they have to start at the top and then leadership, right? They have to want to make it happen. They have to speak it into existence, as I like to say, and put forth the energy to make that happen in their orgs. This past summer there was some conversation around the shortage of black talent at organizations, and whether that was because the hiring practices at an organization or because there's a lack of black talent, right? And I think that for any organization that's thinking through this, I think if they're thinking about it in the latter part, and that being that there's a lack of black talent, I think that right there is going to have ripple effects throughout the organization in terms of why you don't have a meaningful representation. That's not just for black talent, right? I think that's all talent across the board, looking for a diverse representation of people. I think you have to go in there with the mindset that the talent is there and that you have to figure out how to find it. And then as I talk about unconscious bias, this is when I'm getting into more the ground level, right? Talk about the screening, the interviewing, and the hiring. I think that people have to go in there and being aware of how they're thinking about that, being aware that if they're looking at somebody's name on a resume, if they're looking at a certain place or city or whatever that somebody's from, or certain schools, right? Those naturally, as you're going through resumes, you're getting a lot of resumes for a job. People are naturally going to start to siphon things out because of various things that they might think about the resume, before they even have the opportunity to really speak to that candidate and see what that candidate can do. So, I think those two things, if an organization, and then again down to the people that are actually doing the hiring, if they're aware of those two things and they can really work on that, I think you'll see meaningful change in any organization to really improve the representation gap.
That's fantastic advice. Any like also some practical tips for leaders as they're putting out job postings, things that they can do to widen the gate to make sure that all applicants could be having visibility,
Mhm.
especially those of marginalized communities.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think in terms of job postings itself, I think you have to kind of think about where you're posting, right? And I mean, naturally speaking, again, there's obviously a lot of aggregators out there and different things that companies can do to post jobs, making sure they're out there, kind of in the universe, if you will. So you're going to get a lot of people that way. But if you are saying, hey, but I really want to make sure that I'm getting to target, a certain group of folks, or I want to make sure I'm getting a broader range, right? Whether that's black talent, whether that's Asian talent, if it's wanting to get some more veterans into an organization, right? I think really pinpointing certain areas and opportunities, different organizations that you can partner with to make sure that job posting is getting seen by talented individuals I think might be right for that role. I think getting very specific about where you want to post that job would really help, and just drive more. Look, I mean, that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get somebody there, but at least you know that you have gone ahead and make that extra effort to try to again target some other groups there, and see if you can't at least grab some other potential candidates there from other groups that may not have seen the initial posting.
What are some ways that experienced leaders can improve representation?
Well, from experience, one thing I've been really impressed with in the time I've been here. I think going back to my earlier comments, but I've been really impressed again with the top down, coming from Craig and down to the leadership about the need and desire to want to improve again representation across the board. So I think that has been fantastic, and I think a number of leaders here that I've talked to and actions that I've seen, I think they're doing a good job of really trying to strive for those marks, right, and making sure that again we are looking at different places, right, to try to find people, making sure that we are looking across the board, and really just posing the question of whether we have enough diversity there, and that's not just diversity of background, it's kind of diversity of thought too, right? So I think there's a number of leaders that are doing that. I would just say that as we head into 2021 now, right, having 2020, this conversation really picking up steam, I think it's going to be hugely important for Experian, and then again, just organizations in general to kind of keep an eye on that goal, right, and not forget really the energy that was behind kind of that drive beforehand, right, and kind of knowing where that came from. I think again, keeping that top of mind through the rest of this year and beyond, and really keeping that as a center for how an organization wants to grow their talent base going forward would be hugely critical. But again, been really impressed with Experian and what the leadership has done there, and those desires.